meditation as we continue the series concerning Black men's wellness, health, as well as mental health. Today, we have the esteemed Chris James, founder of A Healthy Alternative, author, as well as just overall health guru on providing the community with opportunities to heal themselves, right? And so, as you all know, this whole series has been about what are ways that the community highlighting Black men's experience to heal themselves. So we are very much so excited about Chris James and his particular contribution to not only healing the Black community, but I would say healing the world. Before we begin, I would like to introduce our co-series organizer, Ms. Taliba Onyebuchi. Ms. Taliba Onyebuchi is a vegan coach, a health professional, as well as she spent years helping the community within the court system. So I would like to thank Ms. Taliba for being a part of this wonderful journey, and she will actually introduce Chris James.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. So I'm very excited today to have Mr. James with us. So I'm going to tell you just a little bit about him. Chris James is a self-taught wellness coach and creator of a healthy alternative wellness brand with over 140,000 followers. Chris teaches others how to heal using the body's resources. Chris also believes that water fasting should be at the epicenter of one's wellness journey. Through personal experimentation and documentation, he shows others how to perform fasting safely and effectively. He has had much success aiding others as they heal from diabetes, obesity, infertility, and many other debilitating diseases. He also shares testimonials from others who have had success utilizing water fasting and other techniques. Chris' goal is to provide information that inspires his viewers to take action. This is why his closing statement is, "The application of knowledge is power." Please help me welcome Chris James to our discussion today.
Thank you. Appreciate that. That was beautiful. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much, Chris. We are, like I said, very excited about this opportunity. So as you know, this series is focusing on Black men's wellness, health, as well as like self-care. And so our first question we would like to ask you is, what is self-care to you? Now you are already healing others. And sometimes when you are in that position of healing others, it causes, some friction, within your own regimen. So how are you able to balance taking care of yourself while you take care of others?
Keeping self first, being selfish. One of the things they taught us not to do. You literally have to relearn a lot of things that we've been taught. And, especially as a man, you're taught to women and children first. That whole mentality of taking care of others before you take care of yourself is so destructive. So first I had to understand that it's not a bad thing to be selfish, meaning it's not a bad thing to focus on self first, because as a man or as a provider, I can't provide or do anything for my family or my friends if I'm not here or if I'm not well. So I saw a lot of the men, in my family pass before their wives. They're no longer here to provide wisdom, guidance, resources, or whatever it is they had to offer because they didn't take care of their health. And when I was really studying and learning and at the beginning of my journey, I was looking at guys like, Dr. Sebi, who had seemingly given so much to the community that by his own admission, he had neglected himself. And I made a decision at that point that I was not going to go down that route. I want to help people as much as I possibly can, but the reality is you can't pour from an empty cup. So you have to keep yourself on the forefront. You got to make sure to maintain your own personal harmony in order to be effective and help other people. And that's just goes across the board, right? Mothers are very nurturing. And so their natural inclination is to take care of everyone else first. So it really has to be something that is intentional, but also we got to understand there's nothing wrong with it. And so balancing my own personal health regimen and taking care of myself, it's not easy. I'm not going to lie to you, because I want to give, 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 give. That's like the nature of my being, it seems like. It has to be very intentional. It's something, and I also have a good tribe around me. Like they let me know, hey, Chris, seems like you're kind of getting on edge. Do you need a break? And that helps to keep me grounded and centered. And I think that's also important. Have people around you that can support you, especially when it relates to your own self-care. Like if the people around you can't tell you, hey, like you don't look too good, or do you need to take a vacation or whatever, if they can't tell you that, then you need people around you that can.
Thank you so much for really going deep within that. And I just want to agree with you on this particular ideal of the narrative, the Western narrative, of putting everyone first. Also, that, particular gendered narrative, right? Women and children first, right? And how that particular narrative can at times be a hindrance to Black men or men in general being able to take care of themselves. And I really enjoyed how you said it's okay to be selfish. And this common thread of you cannot pour, from an empty cup, and using Dr. Sebi as an example, as a mentor, of following in a footstep, as well as using him as an anchor in the things that you do. So thank you so much for expounding on that. Taliba, did you have any questions or comments concerning what Chris just said?
Well, no, just a comment. I agree. And one of the things that I just do for myself is I rise very early and I get my exercise regimen in, my meditation, and then I do a lot of gardening during the day to do my self care. So you're absolutely right. It's not selfish. They should call it self first.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it's not selfish. It is the best thing that you could do for the people that you love and care about. And even as you just said, if that means, getting up a little early and just, doing your morning meditation, your morning yoga, or, maybe just reading or having quiet time. Me personally, I'm kind of a night owl, so I have to find my time at night oftentimes, but it's so important to do it, because if you don't take care of yourself, you're not going to be sharp. There's a lot of things that I want to do, and with the brand and everything, we've got so much stuff going on. If I'm not sharp, or if I'm, just feeling drained, or whatever the case may be, right? Even if my health at some point starts to decline, that's a huge problem. There's a lot of things that are tied to me walking the walk. Like imagine a health guru, as people call me, looking like death, baggy bags under their eyes and all this stuff. Like, so I gotta take care of myself.
I really like that honesty, because when we look to ideas of health, people in general are looking for healthy people, right? And so if you don't look healthy, 9 out of 10, right? Or if people find out that you're not walking the walk that you say you're walking, right? It can definitely put you in a very contradicting position. And so you have to practice what you preach, right? Um, can you provide us with just some examples of, like, in your in your time as healing Black people, Black men, or people in general? What are some of the things that you find that Black men have challenges with the most when it comes to self-care and or their healing journey?
Probably the most obvious thing with Black men is they don't want to admit that something might be wrong with them. They also don't want to seek help from others. And if they do seek help from others, they're very reluctant to utilize the advice that's been given to them. So I don't know if it's more of like an ego thing or just the culture. When you think about the culture that we have experienced as, melanated people, just in America specifically, we're not treated very well when we go to the hospitals, and the government has experimented on us. So I think there's a lot of validity to the reason why Black men don't want to, approach healthcare providers and things. And then when you think about people in my vein, we're not mainstream. It's not popular. It's not a popular idea. Health, from a standpoint of utilizing the body's natural resources, is more taboo. It's alternative medicine, whereas maybe 200 years ago, it was the only way to do it. And so, because we're so disconnected from what our ancestors did and taught, and because we can't really trust modern medicine, and I think men especially understand that, we don't look for help. We don't want to know. Something's wrong, right? And we're taught suck it up. We're taught men don't cry. We're taught all of these things that cause us to just deal with it versus look for an answer, look for a resolution. We don't want to get tested. We'll fight through it. And I think that that's just the culture. That's what we've been taught. That's how we've been raised. And it's terrible because we're dying off much earlier. We're not here to support our families in a way. Grandchildren need their grandfathers. Like, we think about when you raise a child, they say it takes a village to raise a child. We don't even have two parents. None of you don't have grandparents. You don't have aunts and uncles. Everyone's dying off. Diabetes is destroying our community. I mean, heart disease is tearing us apart, right? So that's probably one of the biggest things. We're not looking at the big picture. We're just thinking about, oh, I don't want to get that bad bad blood test results, or I don't want to hear that I have diabetes because my dad had it and I saw what he went through. You know what I mean? And so I think there's a fear factor as well as just culture teaching you suck it up.
Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate how in depth, you went into that question, right? And just really looking at the overarching problem and the stigma, right, that's affiliated with masculinity and this particular ideal of asking for help. So I just want a follow-up question. But before that follow-up question, someone in the chat did ask, um, is self-care, selfish? How do you get to the point of taking care of yourself without feeling like you're doing something selfish? There was one of the questions in the chat from Tempest Lewis. So if you can just respond to that before I do my follow-up question.
So self-care is not selfish in the traditional sense. It really just means that you need to be at your best in order to give the best care to those around you. So what that means is, yeah, you take care of yourself first, right? For example, a lot of times people will beat themselves up for their job. That's just a normal thing to do. If you have a family of four, especially if you're a man or if you're a single mom or something like that, and you feel like you're the backbone of the family, if you don't work, the family doesn't eat. So your thought process is, I don't feel good today, but I got to go to work for my family, right? Or if you work in an environment that's just stressful, right? Every day you go into work, you hate your coworkers, you hate your boss, maybe you don't even like the work you do. That causes stress on your body. What we don't do is we don't make the connection between stress and cortisol, right? Stress often causes the body to release cortisol. It's a response to stress. Well, if you have an excess amount of cortisol in your system, now you're at risk for all types of diseases, including heart disease. So now your actual life is at risk because you're constantly going to a job or putting yourself in a position where you're stressed. What I'm saying is, take a look at the big picture. How is this job affecting you long term? Is it cutting your lifespan short? And if it is, then you might need to put some energy towards changing that situation, whether it means changing positions, going to a different company, or changing your career. I think that we often feel like because we've put so much time and energy into something, whether it's a job or relationship or otherwise, we got to stick it out. But we only get one of these lives. So if you're killing yourself for your job in order to take care of your family, you got to understand what you're doing. Like, you're cutting your lifespan short. And then also, as you get older, guess what? If your body is breaking down, you're going to become a burden on those same people that you feel like you were here to protect and provide for. And so that's what I mean by like taking care of yourself first. It's not about, uh, you don't buy them the sneakers, right? You buy yourself the sneakers. It's not about material things or anything of that nature. It's big picture stuff. Put yourself in a position where you could be happy and healthy in your relationships, right? If you're with a mate, you're dating somebody who stresses you out, you're not happy. How is that then affecting the people that you say you're here to provide for and take care of? So we got to look at those sorts of things.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that, and just really, going in again deeper on that particular question, and just ending on that point of like, yeah, you run yourself raggedy taking care of all these people, but when you're unable to take care of yourself, you know, how would you feel, when these same people are going to have to take care of you in ways that, might discomfort them? And this is not saying that family and friends are not supposed to take care of you, but what can you do to, live longer and healthier so you can continue to be an asset to all those people around you? Um, on that last question, before we asked about the self care, you were talking about some of the stereotypes or mental, um, the things that men say in their head, right? That causes them not to take their health seriously, or to see providers, or to even see, an alternative way of looking at health. Can you just talk a little bit about what made you shift to taking your health serious, to creating a platform, from moving yourself from that general paradigm that men have when it comes to taking care of themselves and healthcare?
Yeah, for me, I've always been the type of person that observed. Believe it or not, as much as I talk, I started my life listening more than anything else. And I think that's important. And so I was working I was an electrician. So I'm in the construction field. And there's a lot of mentoring that happens, or at least should happen, in that environment. And I was working with guys that were between 6 to 20 years older than me. And I could see how their bodies were deteriorating at a very rapid rate. So there was a guy that I was working with. He was probably in his early to mid 40s, and he had issues with his prostate. He couldn't go more than 40 minutes, maybe an hour, without running to the bathroom. I mean, in my opinion, this is a young guy, right? From our the way it is now, you might not look at a 40-year-old guy as a young guy, but I thought that was a young guy. And he was having some really embarrassing issues. And I saw guys in their 50s who were just curled up. They were dried out. Literally, their skin was dry. They were curled up, very unhappy, just very low vibrating. And I was like, I don't want that. I have no desire to be that in the next 15 years. That's crazy. I also started noticing, so from observing them, I started noticing little ticks, little things about myself that were going wrong. So when I was probably about 27, I noticed that right here above my temples, my hair was starting to thin. Now, back then, I kept my hair cut low, so it wasn't very prominent, but I was just like, man, is my hair thinning? I was like, nah, I'm tripping. Like, I'm just, I blew it off. I really just ignored it as much as I could. When I started looking at these guys, I started noticing that my body wasn't functioning the way that it used to. My heart wasn't beating well. My breathing was shallow and much different than what it was when I was younger. My hair was thinning. my body was literally starting to fall apart. I also had an infection that I had been dealing with for, at that time, maybe, 8 years that I couldn't get rid of. Didn't know what it was. No, the doctors, the tests, no, nobody knew what it was. They literally were telling me, oh, it's in your head. Like, but it was getting to a point where it was irritating me. Right. So I had a lot of things going on, and I was making observations. And then I was also thinking about my grandparents. Both my grandpas died before they were 80. One had, I think, lung cancer or lung disease, and then the other had diabetes. And I didn't want that. I didn't want that for myself. So I decided to look into, well, first of all, my grandma had always kind of instilled in me that you can eat healthy. You can eat healthy. You could supplement. You could do things to um, live a healthier life as you get older. So I took like vitamins and stuff like that, but I noticed the vitamins weren't doing anything. Like I wasn't seeing any improvement. So I stopped. But then I decided to research deeper and start learning about the body and learning about, how to eat properly. And one of the things that really used to scare me was that I would do all of these things. Like I would eat right, I would exercise, I'd do all these things, and I would still die from cancer or something. Because that's what happened to my uncle, right? He did marathons, he did bowling, he was very active, he was doing real estate, just a very active, vibrant guy, and he died in his 50s from cancer. So I thought, well, if I do all this stuff, it still doesn't matter because of the way cancer forms in the body. Like I still have a chance to die. So when I started doing a deep dive and learning about, cancer and disease and how the body functions, it really started to show me, no, that's not true. I just was misinformed, right? I didn't have enough information. So once I saw all these guys around me and I'm like, I don't want their life, I started doing this research. I started learning more. And then I started sharing it with them guys at work. And they would make fun of me and stuff. But, you know, I did my best to start sharing it with other people, but they were very resistant to it.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed how, you was like, look, what brought me to the table of my healthy journey was, let me be real. I saw how these men were struggling. They were struggling in their health, right? They were struggling in, just the way they interacting with people. You had a family example that you discussed, and using that observation of the men around you to really put you on game of like, hey, I need to take care of myself. And not only that, you also discuss how you notice things on your body, right, that were changing, and going the traditional route only was not helping. So that forced you to do your research and to take your health in your own hands, to find methods that would work for you and your health journey. So thank you so much for that wonderful response.
Mhm.
Taliba is going to go ahead and ask you the next question.
All right. Chris, what is the healthy alternative and why did you create it?
A healthy alternative is literally exactly the way it sounds. So when you look at modern medicine, when you look at Western medicine, it is not a health-based practice. They call it healthcare, but they also call seedless grapes organic. So we have to look at like the wordplay, and um, they want us to believe that what they're putting out there has something to do with health, but it's the furthest thing from the truth. What I started to learn when I was doing my research is that they're actually into treatment. Treatment is
Mm-hmm.
completely different from healing, and health should be about healing. So it's not even a doctor's doctrine to necessarily heal someone, it is to treat symptoms. So when I started to learn about what symptoms were, I was blown away because because of the misinformation that we're given, we are taught that that symptoms are a bad thing, right? Um, if you go into a room and it's really, really dusty, you start coughing, you start sneezing, that's the symptom. So what you would do is you would take a cough drop, or you would take a spray, some type of nasal spray to calm down the symptoms instead of inspecting the room and the particulates in the room and what's irritating your system and thinking about what's the cause of the symptoms. And that's the difference between, treating and healing. So a healthy alternative is literally about finding a healthy alternative to modern medicine. And we used to do this was something that we knew. It was just everyone knew, it was commonplace. If you are dealing with a health ailment, right? Like diabetes or something, you wouldn't go to the allopathic medicine. The allopathic medicine is for trauma, but it's been bolstered now. Rockefeller did a very good job of putting funding and resources into the allopathic medicine so that now we go to that for everything, right? You would go to a chiropractor, you would go to acupuncturist, you would go to a herbalist. That's what our ancestors would have done, but we've been tricked. And also the colleges and everything that our institutions of higher learning, it's to the point where if you aren't a MD, and this is just me speaking from my personal experience, if you're not an MD, you're not even a real doctor. You're not, you people don't take you seriously. They don't take a chiropractor as seriously as they take a medical doctor, right? If you're a brain surgeon, you're higher than, someone who does acupuncture. Like you're way higher. Because you're a brain surgeon. You open up people's skulls and you play with their brain. Like, and it's barbaric. You're mutilating the body with surgery and all of this stuff. And I'm like, we think it's a win when we had cancer and we've burned our body with radiation and chemotherapy, or we've had, body parts cut out or removed. We think that's a win if we can survive that and we don't have cancer anymore. We call that a win. And I look at that as like a last ditch effort. That should be the absolute last thing that we should ever consider is cutting our body open and going through that process. First of all, preventative care is not even on most people's radar, right? They're not teaching medical doctors nutrition. We have a 40-day wellness class, and we have we have physicians and everything that comes in our class every once in a while. And recently we were talking about it, and they were like, yeah, we get like one class of nutrition. It's a couple hours, an hour or whatever the case is. You get one class. Most of the times they're teaching pharmacology. They're teaching you drugs, synthetics. Well, that makes sense because the pharmaceutical companies are funding the colleges. So it's good business, right? So we gotta understand that Western medicine is a business. It's a huge business. And their business is not in healing, it's in treatment. It's in making sure that you become a lifelong customer. So if we understand that, we know we need an alternative. We need someone who's going to teach us how to heal and ain't worried about constantly making money off of us, right? And I wanted to make sure that the brand didn't just talk about fasting, because it's so much bigger than just fasting, right? Fasting and dietary strategy, they go hand in hand easily, but also mental health. We have such major mental health issues in our community and in America as a whole. I wanted to make sure the brand spoke to everything. So what's a healthy alternative to what you put in your mouth? What's a healthy alternative to maybe the drugs that you take for your depression? What's a healthy alternative to having your breast removed because you have breast cancer? What's a healthy alternative to all of it? So that's where the name came from.
Excellent answer, Chris. I just like to make a comment. You talked about that doctors have a practice, and that's basically what they are doing on people. They practice. You made another comment that they, when they can't figure it out, whatever you're going to see them about, they tell you it's in your head because they can't figure it out. And then finally, with the medicines, they'll tell you when they offer you something to try to treat whatever you came in for, they'll say, we'll try this. And if this doesn't work, then we'll try that, another medicine. And it just goes on and on until they finally get it's in your case. So my next question is this. What are the challenges Black men have when approached with water fasting as a healthy option?
It's taboo. It's very taboo. One of the major issues we have is a lot of our disease comes from environmental stressors. So if we weren't taught about fasting, if we weren't taught about how our diet and how what we put in our stomach can affect our health, we don't really, that doesn't resonate with us most of the time. Don't you want me to not eat? Are you crazy? Like, what do you mean not eat? I need to eat, especially as a man when you're into, fitness, or even if you're not into fitness, you're around guys who talk about fitness. They're going to be talking about, getting in lots of calories, getting lots of protein. There's everything that we view as healthy, right? Even when we look at other men, when we see a healthy looking man, he has muscles, he's athletically built, he physically looks good. And so we are going to defer to advice from that type of guy. The problem is there's a distinct difference between fitness and health. And that's something else that I had to learn. I always wonder, how can a guy have six-pack abs and eat at McDonald's? That never made sense to me. And I thought at the time, I'm like, man, that's crazy. Like, you look good and you eat at McDonald's. That's the best of both worlds. But then what I started to learn is them are the guys that people used to tell me, oh, I had a friend, he worked out every day, he was an athlete, blah, 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 and he still died of a heart attack at 55. So what's the point of all of this? What's the point of being healthy? Well, no, he just looked good. He was fit. He might have been, athletically built, but he was not healthy. And so the challenge is the culture. We view those types of men as healthy, even though they're not. They're just oftentimes fit. A lot of the supplementation and things that they do, it sounds good. It's very disciplined, right? So then when somebody comes and they're like, nah, you need to stop eating, that is diametrically opposed to everything that they believe and everything that they've seen. We're not doing deep dives into health. It's not something that is talked about. I could just tell you from my personal experience, the only people that ever talked to me about health were women. Those are the only people that talk to me about health. So as men are growing up under other men, they have mentors and people that they look up to. A lot of these guys are not talking about health. The only time that you get to a place where men are mentoring other men and talking about health is as they get to their latter years. And it's like, man, I've built businesses. I have a successful relationship with my wife, family, whatever. But like the doctor gave me 6 months to live, and I would trade it all for my health. That's the only time you hear about it. But it's on the back end. And the thing is, those men don't know what health is. That's the reason why they're in the position they're in. So we don't have examples. We don't have conversations. And fasting sounds crazy to men. It just, we've been taught eat. Even if you look at our entertainment, wrestling, anime and cartoons and movies, superheroes, food and eating is a it is ingrained in all of that. Like, if you really look closely at it, it's ingrained in everything that we consume as men. So when you say stop eating, it's like, you want me to kill myself? Like, it's just so extreme. And so that's one of the major, I think. And then it's fasting's hard. We're all addicted to food. I mean, that goes across the board, men and women. We're all addicted to food. So if they do take that leap of faith and they do start fasting, sometimes men do know, about the benefits. They're scared. They don't want to learn. They don't want to do the research. They start experiencing something wonky, and then they just like, nah, this ain't for me, man. This doesn't make me feel good. This ain't for me. Right. So
Thank you so much. I really like the fact that you talked about this, just this particular ideal of, just like the fear factor, right? And I love the fact that you said fitness versus health. Like there's a difference, right? And I think, as you stated before, that people don't realize that there's a difference between fitness and health. Fitness, you can look good and not be healthy, right? And I love that you gave that example, that that's why you have these men and people in general who you look at and they have the abs and the six pack, and they look good, but internally, right, they're corroding. So what we want to do is be healthy, and healthy is looking good on the inside and the outside. So thank you so much for that. You talked about fasting, and I love the fact that you said a healthy alternative is not just fasting, it's a healthy alternative for all the things that you do concerning your health. Health is concerning your environment, health is mental, health is physical, health is emotional, right? A healthy alternative overall. But just for the audience view, can you talk about what is fasting to you? And can you tell us, when did you first go on your water fast?
well, I started fasting in 2016. Um, Fasting, there's a technical definition, which is not eating or drinking for a set period of time. That's really what fasting is. When we talk about water fasting, we're fasting and we're supplementing with water. So that's water fasting. A lot of people feel like if you're not doing water fasting, you're not doing real fasting. And I just find that funny, because fasting is not eating or drinking. When you look at ancient texts and they talk about fasting, they're not talking about what we commonly do nowadays. So that's really what fasting is. It's not eating or drinking. Now, with that being said, I think that if we're okay with water fasting, which is fasting while supplementing with water, then we should be okay with all the other variations of fasting, as long as they promote health. One of the things that I don't really promote is fasting from TV, or fasting from Coca-Cola, or fasting from chocolate. Those are things that you could certainly do, and you could, you know, restrict yourself, and they would be beneficial. So I'm not saying that that's bad. I don't like to lump that with fasting, because then it becomes a little bit too ambiguous. It's like, yeah, I'm fasting today. Oh, yeah. Well, what are you fasting from? Oh, yeah, man, I decided, you know what? Snickers aren't good for me. I'm just not going to eat Snickers anymore. Well, that's good. That's not a bad thing, right? But that's not fasting. When we're talking about fasting, we need to stay somewhat within the realm of the context of what real fasting is. And it's refraining from eating and drinking. And so um, you could do water fasting. You could do juice fasting. You could do liquid fasting. You could do fruit fasting, because when you eat fruit, it's pretty much just water anyway. Most of your fruit is high water content. Watermelon is, 92% water, and apple 85% water, or whatever. So you're really getting a lot of the benefits that you would get from maybe like a juice fast, or even potentially a water fast, even though you're still eating. So I think all of those types of things are acceptable. But at the end of the day, if you're fasting, you should see a significant improvement in your health, right? Like if you come up with some type of fasting methodology that just sounds real good, but you're not seeing any significant improvements in your health, I mean, what's the point? Like, it was just lip service. So um, there's a lot that is under the umbrella of fasting, in my opinion. When I very first started fasting, I was doing water fasting. I didn't understand what I understand today. I didn't understand that dry fasting, right? That's not eating or drinking. was real fasting. I didn't get that. It took me a while to really like understand that. So I started with water, and don't get me wrong, I'm not downing water fasting. It's very powerful. We've seen many different benefits from water fasting, but that's the point. That's the purpose of, I guess, what I'm saying. You know, if you're doing some sort of fasting, it's going to be beneficial. You're going to see weight loss. You're going to see disease reversal. You're going to get mental clarity, more energy, all the things that everybody says they want. So hopefully that answered your question.
Thank you so much. It really did, because I also agree with you in the sense of when I look at fasting, I look at it as a holistic approach to healing. I tell people that if you're going to fast, it's not just going to you're not going to just lose weight, because even after the fast, you have to change your habits, right? I tell people to use fasting as a catalyst to make a change, but you can't use it just for like one time. Like, okay, I lose 20 pounds, and then you go back to eating unhealthy, or you go back down that rabbit hole. You use fasting as a way to shift your paradigm, right? And then you have things in place that can assist you as you are going on your healthy journey. So I truly appreciate that, and knowing like the variants of fasting, and knowing like the true origin of fasting. All those things are important. So thank you so much for clarifying those things. My next question is concerning your endeavors. You talked about some of the things already. You talked about your 40-day fasting class. You have an app, you have a book. Can you talk about some of the resources that you provide under the platform of a healthy alternative that can help people?
Yeah. So we have, well, first of all, the goal with the brand as a whole and the resources we provide, it's a holistic approach. So oftentimes people think that, okay, Chris is a health and wellness guy. He wouldn't talk about finance. But do you know that people commit suicide because of they're in debt or because of financial problems? So we can't separate our health and wellness from the different aspects of our lives. Relationship health is very important to an individual's health and wellness, right? So I wanted the brand to have the ability to touch on many different topics, even ones that people don't really necessarily think connect. But with that being said, I have the book that I put out. I've got it here. Metamorphosis: A Journey to Holistic Wellness. The goal of this book was to be a tool, right? It's very easy to read. It's literally like listening to my voice, right? It's just I wrote it in a way that was easy to comprehend for, you know, individuals who are really just getting started with their health journey, or if you want to maybe prompt someone to start this journey. It's a really simple tool, and that's the way that I look at it. I never really want to look at anything that I do as entertainment. These are tools that I'm providing to help facilitate your health and wellness journey. The same thing goes with the app. So our focus with the app is to not provide a platform for entertainment and for people to come and socialize. I mean, that will happen. That'll be a part of it. But the goal is for it to be a tool to aid you in your health and wellness journey. So, for example, one of the features that we've been working really hard on is a body scan feature, right? Where you could take a picture of your body and you scan it into the phone, and the app will give you a readout of your different measurements, so you could track your progress, especially if you're focused on weight loss or maybe fitness. We also put a tool in there where a group of people can fast together. It's very important that when you're fasting, or just in general, when you're going down a health journey, a health path, that you have a support system. Now, if you're married, it would be great for your spouse to be that support system for you, but we don't all have that luxury. Some of our spouses will even try to sabotage us. So I wanted to create a tool where people can get together and support each other, right? We've got the 40-day wellness program, which is a deep dive. It's what everybody asks me for. It is group coaching with myself and my brother Steven, It's over the span of 40 days. It is, we talk about mental health, we talk about emotional health, which is huge. Most of us are emotional eaters and we don't know it. Most of us, when we think of emotional eaters, we think of that girl on the movies who just got dumped by her boyfriend who she thought she was going to marry, and she's eating a tub of ice cream and eating chips and Doritos and stuffing her face. That's not the only picture of emotional eating. Emotional eating is also, you're happy because you graduated from high school and so the family takes you out to eat. That's also emotional eating, right? Emotional eating is you just got engaged, and so to celebrate, you go out and you eat. Emotional eating could also be your favorite uncle just passed away, and so you eat your emotions. The family brings you food, right? So most of us are emotional eaters. Understanding those nuances are important. It's something that really is best served in a intimate community. So you get an opportunity to um, have very unique interactions and conversations with myself and my brother. And that's a major commitment. There's a major commitment when people join that. So that's only for people who are really serious about investing in themselves. We've got the AHA Fasting Academy. The Fasting Academy is a subscription-based service that you can use month to month. And it's designed to really teach you the ABCs of fasting, give you an amazing base for dietary strategy, as well as teach you some of the other nuances of health, like hydration, things that people don't consider. Yeah, we know drink 8 glasses of water a day, but what does that really mean? And what is a glass of water? Is it 16 ounces? Is it 8 ounces? Like, it's not very specific. So learning that just drinking 8 ounces of glasses a day doesn't mean that you're hydrating is important. So there's nuanced information and things like that in there as well. In the future, we're going to be building out a finance portion of the academy, because my first love was actually researching finances. I was a big money person. I love money. Not so much anymore, but it's still important. We have major financial stressors that are going to cause health implications. Remember, when we talked earlier, stress is the silent killer. So whether that stress is coming from your job or your relationship or your financial burden, stress is stress. And that is my arena, making sure that we know how to minimize stress across the board. So you all can maybe look forward to that. And we've got some pretty amazing plans for how we're going to launch that.
Thank you so much. I really yeah, the app. I'm very excited about the app myself. You talked about the app providing people accessibility, and that's what I really enjoy about a healthy alternative, is that it's accessible on different platforms, right? You're on Instagram, you're on Facebook, you have an app, you're on YouTube, right? You're everywhere. So, and you're meeting people at different levels. You can read a book, you can listen, to a podcast or a live video, and you can get something. And I truly appreciate that, because when I think of the community, I think of just different learning styles, right? And so when you have people who have different learning style, you have to be creative, right? In the ways that you approach that information and give it to the people. I am super excited about the finance part. I would love, to see how fasting and financing, how I can do. I've been trying. I haven't been too successful at, trying to merge the two, but I'm trying to merge it, right? So I would love assistance myself on how I can strategically, use those two things together, and thinking about finances in a healthier way, right? Because finances is a major stress. And speaking to a healthy alternative being a safe space to find other people who can fast. I met Taliba Anyabuchi, the co-creator of this series, um, on a healthy alternative. So we would not be talking to you together if a healthy alternative was not in existing on Facebook. I think I was doing a fast, and I said, I'm looking for someone to help me. I'm about to do a 30-day water bay leaf tea fast. And Taliba was like, I'll do it. And that was last year, Chris. And so ever since then, me and her have been on a journey. And you know what? We have not even met each other. So that's the type of, community that a healthy alternative brings, right? Like-minded, conscious people to the table who are serious about their health, and from that can collaborate and create other opportunities and spaces that exist. So I did want to say, if there's anybody on the Zoom, the chat is open if you have a question. Also, if you want to make a comment, please feel free. Taliba, is there anything else you want to say, or was there a question that you had?
Well, not so much a question. Well, I did have one other question. He did answer about the app. I would also like to know what's his strategy. What strategies do you suggest Black men use to help with mental health and wellness?
Um, there's so many barriers. There's so many walls. The most important thing is, you know, a man in our community being open to and being receptive. That's probably the biggest issue. Finding a way to capture the attention of a man that's the most challenging part, because a lot of us are focused on that new term, getting the bag, right? We just want to make money. We want to get money. It really plays on our nature to provide. And this is part of the reason why I'm integrating the finance into the brand, because it's going to attract a different audience. We got to understand, most men, they're not concerned with mental health. They don't even know that they have mental health issues, right? So it's a really challenging question to answer, because if men don't know that they have mental health issues, they're not looking for the information. They're not looking for the guidance. So I feel like if we integrate finance into this equation, it will become a little bit more attractive to, the male counterparts. And then through that, we can infuse the health oriented information in there, right? Because I like to approach everything holistically. So, for example, one of our biggest expenses monthly is food. It's food. If I can challenge a man to really look at his budget, how much money are you actually spending on food, including what you spend on fast food and, Uber Eats or whatever, right? Calculate all of that money. Let's just say for, a single guy, that might look like $500 a month. That same guy will tell you he doesn't have the money for this, that, and the other. But you got $500 a month that you spend on just food. Well, if you take a week off from eating, right, which is perfectly healthy, then you could save yourself a quarter of that, right? If you take 2 weeks off, you could save half of that. What's an extra $250 going to do for you per month? And obviously the numbers will be a little different for each person. In addition to that, you're not just saving $250 that you could put towards, investing, right? A lot of people are into cryptocurrency and stuff like that now, and they want to get into it. They don't have the money. Well, there you go. This is a really simple way to do it. Or maybe just taking your girl on that vacation she's been begging for, right? 1 or 2 months of fasting, you got $750, $1,000. You may be able to go take that vacation. But in addition to that, you're going to increase your lifespan because you're overweight. Let's be honest, as a whole, especially as Americans, we're very obese. So most people are overweight. So you're going to increase your lifespan. You're going to have better energy. And then I also like to sneak in your sexual performance is going to improve, because those are things that really entice men. Once we have their attention, right? Once we've dangled the carrot, then they'll start to vibe and trust the information. And at that point, we can kind of start talking about, you know, do you cry? Like when things happen, right? Do you fully express yourself? I'm not saying you got to go and cry in front of the world or on YouTube or something like that. Do you take the time to even go to your own quiet space and cry? And do you understand the benefit of that? Right? Like, are you experiencing an extreme frustration, anger? Right? You just got to kind of ask probing questions. Are you happy? Most men want legacy, right? I think it's in us. We want legacy. Do you have children? Are you having problems conceiving? Right? And so asking these probing questions will start to get them comfortable, and they'll start to, unravel that protective armor that they have. And then we can start getting into the mental health. It's just a different approach. I can't just say, hey guys, I'm hosting a mental health class. You should join. They don't care. They're not interested in it. They don't know that they have mental health issues to begin with. So I think it's kind of we have to sneak attack it a little bit. And it has to be, I feel like it has to be a grassroots effort, right? We got to touch lives one-on-one. My goal, especially with, like, let's say the 40-day wellness class, we don't have a ton of men in the class, but I find that there's a high percentage of men who take the class and get tremendous value out of it. If we can teach men that their mental health, their emotional health is important, and they can see the benefit of it, they then are going to teach their sons, or they're going to teach their nephews. They're going to teach the men around them, like, yo, I didn't take this seriously before, but I learned so much from this class, and here's some of the benefits that I got. They will then, through those conversations, be able to entice other men to want to know more. So I think it's important that men are having these conversations with men, because you can't get it, you can't hear it from a woman. We're used to y'all talking about health, and, well, we don't care. It doesn't entice us. You know what I mean? But if another man talks about what he experienced and the benefits he got from taking a deep dive on the trauma that he experienced when his parents split up, or, the trauma that he experienced when his girl cheated on him, right? And how he's in such a better headspace now because of the work he did on himself, I think it's more impactful.
Wow.
Thank you so much. I really, again, just I'm really enjoying that perspective, and I really enjoyed that fact. That last point is that, hey, men have to talk to each other, right? And it is true, especially when I think of the Black community, women are always at the front of, like, you need to do this, right? You need to do this, right? And it's that old saying of going in one ear and coming out the other. You're not going to tell me what to do. I'm a man, or I can live my life. I know what I'm doing. But when you have your brother, say, hey, this is what's going on with my health. When you have your father, when you have your colleague who's a male, it's just something about having, another person, who understands you a little deeper, you know, to tell you how to do things, or express, like, I understand, hey man, I understand, what you're going through. And I fasted, or I stopped eating pork, or hey, this helped me with my mental health. So thank you for really encouraging that discussion. Shell Bush on the chat said, the fact that you all were able to unite and begin building together is amazing. That speaks volumes about the a healthy alternative brand and the energy that flows in the group. So, Taliba, that comment was towards us and our ability to create this platform and interview the founder, and hopefully have other people see the impact that he's making. So, thank you so much, Shelby or Shell Bush, for your wonderful comment. I truly appreciate that. Taliba, did you have any more questions or comments that you wanted to say before we wrap up?
Well, I just wanted to thank Chris for going so in depth. He said so many things that I had never even considered. And yes, men do need to talk to men. Women do a lot of talking, but men follow me. So I'm looking forward to the journey that a healthy alternative is going on. And as they expand, I'll be proud of the group. I'm going to immerse myself in it. And one of the ways I'm going to get people to address their health is just for them to see me, for me to be a testimony to not just what I speak, but how it has affected me, my appearance, as well as my mental health. So I want to thank you, Chris, for taking the opportunity to speak to everyone today. I was just gassed that you said yes to come and speak with us today. So thank you from the depths of my heart.
My pleasure.
So, Chris, as we round up, we talked about a lot of different things. And at times, Ashe, women are the first ones who have to tell someone, about their health. So, what strategies can you give to women in discussing, talking to a partner or a brother or father about health in ways that may make them a little bit more receptive?
Man, that's a rough one because I'm not a woman. I think that oftentimes we have to show better than we can say. It's I come across so many women who have the right heart. They want to impart wisdom to their family, but they themselves are not walking the walk. And especially from a man's point of view, I'm not going to have much respect for a woman who is telling me what I can do to improve my health if she's not healthy or if she's not doing that thing. The other thing that I personally think that would be very impactful for women is if you learned how to maybe prepare dishes that were very delicious and you can offer them to your man, right? If you can offer him healthy food alternatives that are delicious, one of the big things that I talk about is getting away from meat. We eat way too much meat. I'm not going to sit here and say that meat is the devil and you should never eat it. I just think that we eat too much of it. The quality of the meat that we eat is very poor and we're not concerned with it. So, as a woman, if you can find some amazing meat alternatives, I'm not talking about Beyond Meat, I'm not talking about Impossible Burgers. I'm saying, like, there's interesting ways you could cook jackfruit to make it taste meaty, right? To where you can make a jackfruit taco and your dude might not even realize that there's not actual meat in there. He might not think it's chicken, but the texture of it reminds him of meat, and so he doesn't question it. And then maybe later on, you'll be like, yeah, those are jackfruit tacos. That wasn't even meat. That will allow a spark in his mind to say, oh, I didn't realize I could enjoy a meal without meat. It doesn't even necessarily have to be a conversation you have beforehand. You could just do it, right? But that also takes practice. That also takes a level of commitment from your side, learning how to prepare these dishes to where they're pleasurable to the palate of a meat eater. Or, just in general, showing a guy that you can eat healthy and it's fun and it tastes good. Because before I ever started down this path myself, I used to make fun of my friend because he was a vegetarian. I would say, bro, you're eating that rabbit food again. And every time we would go to an event or something, he had very limited options. There wasn't a lot for him to eat. So I think being able to provide an experience, right? Like put together a genuinely healthy meal for someone. Make sure it tastes good and just let them try it. And then let them be blown away at the fact that they can be satiated and satisfied by something that's actually healthy. That makes all the difference in the world. I decided to do some raw food last month. I was completely floored. Even at this point in my journey, I was completely floored at how satiating it was. Like raw food eating is extremely satiating. It was so easy for me to overeat. Just the way that the body processes the food, you feel much more full. Also, the food, energetically speaking, has much more to offer than the synthetic foods and the chemical foods and the meat that we eat. So not only was I satiated, but eating fresh ingredients is a game changer. When you cook food, oftentimes you take away from the different pungent and spices, and you take away from a lot of the flavor. And so you might be surprised at how the reaction you get from your mate, especially men, if you make him a raw dish. And don't tell him. You don't need to tell him, oh, this is a raw pasta that I made. It was spiralized zucchini. Just give it to him. Most men will eat what you give them. I think ladies understand that. My mom, a lot of the women in my family tell me, like, yeah, my husband, he'll eat whatever I give him. Okay, so then that gives you a lot of power, right? And they say that a way to a man's heart is through his stomach. I don't know if that's true or not, but I know that I like to eat. And then if a woman is providing me with raw meals that are tasty, I don't really need to eat anything else. Like I would rather not cook. As much cooking as I do now, I would rather my girl or whoever I'm talking to, my wife, make raw meals for me or make healthy food for me and just feed it to me all day long. That's perfect. So hopefully that answers your question, because I think that's probably one of the best ways to approach it.
Thank you so much. That was definitely perfect. And I like the fact that you talked about this idea of leading by example, which works both ways, right? Whether you are a man trying to encourage your woman to go vegan, vegetarian and or raw, or if you're a woman, trying to encourage your mate, leading by example and preparing those um, delicious meals, right? And not letting that person know, hey, there's a little, this is not meat, this is chickpea or mushrooms, and just giving it to them. And
Mm-hmm.
thank you so much. I think a lot of the viewers will definitely be trying, some of those things tonight. So, Chris, I would just like to thank you so much for taking the time out of your extremely busy schedule to shed more light on a healthy alternative and the wonderful things that you are doing. Before we end, we always like to ask just a little, like, I guess, fun question. Can you just tell us, like, one of your favorite songs? We would like to just play it a little bit before we leave.
Yeah, so it's funny because I'm an extremist to a degree, especially when it comes to like health information. So I stopped listening to a lot of music because of the impact that the music has on my spirit. But before I stopped listening to music, I did have some favorite tunes. One of my favorite was "Ordinary People" by John Legend. So um, I just love the way the song make me feel. I love his voice, and I also liked the message behind it.
So we're going to just play a little bit about it. This is a time where you can kind of vibe out and just listen to a couple of minutes of it, and then we're going to leave. So here's "An Ordinary People" by John Legend.